I'm going to switch gears and talk a little bit about worker co-ops. This is more of a self-indulgent discussion because I'm kind of exploring, different forms of governments and how our economy can be improved. And so I've heard you talk a little bit about worker co-ops. Can you explain for the audience how they work?
Sure. So a worker co-op is a business that is owned and managed by the employees. So there's no division between the employer and the employees. But if it's a very small one, you might have like meetings where everybody, like everybody who works at the cooperatively owned restaurant might make certain key decisions. The bigger it is, like any other form of democracy, the more indirect it's going to be. You might have elected management. And the really interesting thing about co-ops, right? This is like right now, the kind of economy that we have right now, it's a tiny little slice of it. But the interesting thing is that once they actually get going, they seem to last about as long and do about as well as regular businesses. It's just that the death rate isn't that much different. It's the birth rate that's just like way, way lower. I think because of the, obviously uneven distribution of starter capital, most people aren't really financially equipped to start a business. And then of course, it's much harder to attract investors if you can't give them an ongoing share of the business as a return. But there are some pretty successful models. So just real quick, one of the sort of big one that people always talk about is there's the Mondragon Corporation in Spain, which is a big federation of cooperative businesses in the Basque region of Spain that's existed for several decades. And at this point, it has like 85,000 members.
Wow.
And it's not perfect. There are problems we can talk about, but there are. But one thing that really jumps out at me in connection with talking about Yang and the UBI is that they've got a really good system for retraining people who are in one part of the corporation, who have like when their jobs become redundant, to like sort of matchmake them with like other cooperatives within the federation, so they don't lose their job, which is the kind of policy that I think you're more likely to get when workers have the kind of input in the decision making of the firm that they're just not going to have in a regular corporation.
So it's fascinating because when I think of worker co-ops, I always think of it in the context of small businesses, maybe a business like the Young Turks. Would a workers co-op work in this type of environment? And an issue that comes up a lot, and I'm going to be completely honest with what my own biases are, is that it sounds a little utopian. It sounds like there's a lot of emphasis on everyone being willing to work equally, work hard, work for the greater good of the company. But we all know that in various work environments, not all workers are built the same. Some people might take advantage, some people might not want to pull their weight. So how does it work in that type of situation? Because I am concerned that there's a little bit of this, and it's a completely different ideology, obviously, but like this libertarian utopian ideology that makes me worried about the same type of outlook on the left.
Like that's a really good thing to think about, because something that constantly bothers me when I'm arguing with libertarians is that for every problem that you can point out, they have some sort of totally speculative, totally unverifiable explanation of how, like, in a really, really free market, you wouldn't have that problem because X, Y, and Z would happen, right? And then, of course, there's no way of checking it, because anything you could ever bring up, say, well, no, we don't have a really, really free market. We have just, that's different, right?
Right.
And so, of course, I don't want to play that game, right? I don't want to just do the socialist version of that and say that, like, for everything that you could come up with, it would ever be a problem. I have like some, speculative fix about how it would work. I mean, I think that you are, that of course, right, different people are going to put in different amounts of work. I think that there is some potential for the kind of free rider problem that you're talking about. Another problem, frankly, that I'm sympathetic towards, because I've spent way too much of my life in faculty meetings that I'm never going to get back, is that like most people hate being in meetings, and the more democracy you have at work, right, the more meetings you have to go to. So there's definitely a trade-off there.
But people also hate others making decisions for them, and that's the top-down approach we have in America.
Absolutely, yeah. And so what I would say is that like it's not that none of these problems are real, but I would say that if you actually like instead of sort of doing the speculation, it's like, oh, in my perfect utopia, here's how it works. If you actually look at the track record of real life co-ops, like Mondragon in Spain or Cooperation Jackson in this country, then I think that you can see that even though co-ops don't have the same like degree of economic inequality, like Mondragon mandates that the biggest gap that you can have between anybody, even at like the highest management level, and any other worker is less than 9 to 1, which of course, for the sake of comparison, in the United States, like private sector, it's 287 to 1.
Right. Yeah.
But despite the fact that you don't have more of these financial incentives, it does seem to be the case that they last about as long as other companies. They do pretty well. In some ways, they're actually more productive because people are managing themselves, so you don't have to like sort of put all this effort into kind of policing people to get them to do things that they don't want to do. And it's not perfect, bottom line, it's still work, even if you do have a democratic say at it, but I think it's a lot better.
Oh, did you like that video? Well, that's great, because you never have to miss another episode of No Filter. All you have to do is just hit the subscribe button below and ring the bell to get notified whenever we publish a new video.